Azimuth, A Historical Perspective, Part 1. Beginning a multi-part overview of historical events surrounding Azimuth biochemicals and its connection to the mysterious salvation. On the 29th of October 3306, an abandoned megaship named the Adamastor arrived in the Chukchan system after traveling at sublight speeds for nearly 200 years. At the time, no one could have foreseen the wide-ranging consequences that would arise from unlocking the secrets of this ghost ship. Investigations revealed that it had been owned by a little-known and long-defunct corporation called Azimuth Biochemicals. The derelict's journey was traced to the previously unexplored Coalsack Nebula, where the Adamastor had collected the survivors of a planetary survey team from the Musca Dark Region PJP B6-1 system. Back in 3111, these geologists had encountered something terrifying and completely unknown. The first recorded instance of contact with the Thargoids. According to team leader Professor Carver, whose final log was discovered on HIP 692001b, a recovered alien artifact caused equipment malfunctions and delusions among the crew. The damaged Adamastor was abandoned, to finally return home on autopilot 2 centuries later. Further exploration of the Coalsack Nebula uncovered nothing more, but did lead to the detection of new barnacle sites. The Alliance wasted no time in harvesting these for meta-alloys, followed by a serious corporation project to terraform ammonia worlds. A resurgence of attacks from Thargoid vessels followed, suggesting that the alien species was as territorial as ever. In April 3307, the Adamastor began receiving a long-range encrypted signal. A decryption key for this was provided by an anonymous source who identified himself only as Salvation. Tracking the signal led to the wreck of the Hesperus, the Adamastor's sister ship. This had disappeared in 3113 and was now drifting in the Perseus Dark Region KCVC-22 system. The distress call had been triggered by a dredger occupied by the nomadic Scriveners clan, who had salvaged the Hesperus's data drives. Messages leaked from the dredger revealed how the Hesperus had been taken over by sleeper agents from Pharmasapien, the corporate rivals of Azimuth Biochemicals. This resulted in the deaths of all except a scientific team who had escaped aboard a secondary craft. 2 months later, the enigmatic Salvation asked pilots to track down the Hesperus's signal beacons to find those missing Azimuth crew members. The secondary craft, named Proteus, was subsequently discovered on a moon in the Trapezium Sector YUXZ-12 system. Its crew had transformed it into a research facility to study relics from a nearby ancient battleground between the Guardian and Thargoid races. The security officer's log told of Azimuth's real purpose: locate non-human technology and weaponize it for the military market. The scientists had conducted dangerous experiments on Guardian crystals, accidentally triggering a radiation surge which wiped them all out. It seemed that Azimuth's story ended there, nearly 200 years ago. But the fate of the Proteus would have enormous repercussions for the future of the galaxy. Azimuth, A Historical Perspective, Part 2. A summary of key events around the rise and fall of the tri-superpower organization Aegis. The Alliance, Empire and Federation created Aegis in 3303 to lead xenological research and coordinate defensive actions against the Thargoids. With fears that the alien species might one day overwhelm human-controlled space, Aegis's role was to spearhead the resistance against a common enemy. There were concerns that Aegis might adopt the same unethical practices as its notorious predecessor INRA, which had been formed back in 3125 during the First Thargoid War. But the new agency was welcomed by most, providing intelligence on Thargoid activity as well as advanced weapons. Since capital ships were vulnerable to the Thargoid shutdown field, Aegis soon had no choice but to rely heavily on independent pilots to perform ship-to-ship combat. And despite its effectiveness at coordinating defense, it was criticized for having no strategy to actually defeat the alien threat. By 3306, Aegis already showed signs of decline. Its Eagle Eye detection network had ceased to provide warnings about Thargoid attacks, and there were no new developments in anti-Xeno weaponry. The rise of the NMLA had altered the political landscape, with funding for Aegis being redirected toward countering the terrorists and preparing for possible federal imperial war. In March 3307, the Galactic Summit failed to ratify the Sirius Treaty, which would have united superpowers, corporations and independent systems against the Thargoids. Instead, Aegis was directed to undertake new research into the Guardians. Their extinct civilization was thought to hold the key to outmatching the Thargoids' biomechanical technology. A successful initiative in May 3307 resulted in enormous quantities of Guardian artifacts being delivered to the Aegis megaship Alexandria. Thargoid vessels were drawn to this concentration of technology created by their ancient enemy and pursued the Alexandria from system to system. When the megaship did not emerge from a hyperspace jump, it was assumed to have been intercepted and destroyed. An independent board of inquiry was established to investigate the loss of the Alexandria. So thorough was this investigation that most of Aegis's activities were suspended, and many leading figures forced to resign. Public confidence in the agency was low, with a general sense that it was no longer fit for purpose. In November 3307, Aegis was brought further into disrepute when its chief military liaison went rogue. Admiral Aidan Tanner led an unauthorized assault against Hind Mine in the T-Tauri system, the headquarters of Salvation's corporate ally Taurus Mining Ventures. Tanner was convinced that Salvation's activities deliberately provoked the Thargoids and that the starport contained evidence of this. His actions would result in failure and court-martial, accelerating Aegis's fall from grace. The Bauman Report, which published the inquiry's findings in January 3308, exposed endemic weaknesses including negligence, poor management, and the treatment of pilots as disposable mercenaries. The casualties resulting from the Alexandria disaster and the Hind Mine attack were the final nails in the agency's coffin. The Alliance, Empire and Federation announced that Aegis would be replaced by devolved anti-Xeno task forces. Its support megaships, still active during Thargoid incursions, were crewed by volunteers until the Combat Logistics Corporation Frontline Solutions agreed to operate them. Even after the true fate of the Alexandria was discovered, along with data supporting Admiral Tanner's suspicions, the collapse of Aegis was by now irreversible. For in recent months, Salvation had achieved impressive results on a scale that no military power could hope to match. Azimuth,